it started off with RJ leading, and then Levi Kitchen took over, but then both of them,
yes, I forgot about that. Oh my goodness. Welcome back to the Daily Racing Show here at RacePlazaMedia. And today, as always, as every Monday, we'll be talking about everything that we've watched racing-wise this past weekend. So let's get into it.
First off, we have the Dakar Rally, which finished this past week. We will do a whole separate video about this coming out tomorrow on Tuesday, talking about our first watching experience of the Dakar Rally. We're going to mention some of the highlights. So yeah, we're going to do a whole separate video about that because there's lots to talk about. A whole last week that we haven't covered essentially and in our overall experience.
Yes.
But let's get into what did we actually watch this weekend. Let's start off with iRacing.
Yes.
We watched chunks of the Daytona 24-hour iRacing championship.
I think it was just a one-time race.
Okay, well, it was the 24-hour Daytona iRacing. iRacing, in case you don't know, is
sim racing. It's a sim racing, so it's not physical racing. You are racing with a steering wheel, shifter, whatever, paddles at your location, whether it's your house or maybe there's like a team location. And yeah, so it's essentially a simulated racing. And this year we have, of course, a big name participating in it, and we'll get to that in just a second. The big name being Max Verstappen.
Yes.
But we're gonna work our ways through the categories because there were 3 categories. We had the GTP category, LMP2 category, and GTD category. So starting from the top with the fastest category, the GTD category.
the GTP.
Yes, the GTP category.
So the Grand Touring Prototype category, which is also the fastest category or vehicle in the race. The winning team this year was Williams eSport Playseat. They've won it the second time now, so congratulations to them.
Yes.
They've won it by 6 seconds.
Yep.
Which is, I feel like it's not a lot, but
not over like a 24-hour
not
span.
over a 24-hour time span. But yeah, it's still, I mean, it's amazing. Speaking of amazing, I want to point out that going into it, I didn't realize that we were watching iRacing. We were both sitting on the couch. I was editing our World Rally Championship video that came out this weekend, if you want to check it out. And so basically I was sitting there half watching the racing on the TV, and I saw that it said like Daytona and 24-hour, and I was like, oh, this is interesting, because isn't Daytona happening next weekend? The Rolex 24 is happening this upcoming weekend. And then at a closer look, I realized that it wasn't real or in-person racing. It was virtual, essentially. So I thought it was really cool. Like, yes, of course, when you really pay attention, you can see that it's not real. But I still thought it was very cool, like how very close and very similar it looks to reality.
Yeah. Especially like the wide shots. If it's wide shots, them going through the corners and stuff like that, I think it is not like a terrible mistake to, not realizing that it's sim racing.
I mean, I was not really paying attention. I was like half watching it. So I thought it was really, really cool. I also loved the different camera angles that they had. I mean, they had some camera angles where they were essentially in front of the car driving, which you can't do in real life as much. I mean, it was like the camera was maybe like 2-3 feet in front of the car and just constantly in front of the car, which was really cool to see.
You have like that chase view.
Yeah. Exactly. So that was really, so I definitely recommend it, checking it out.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's for everybody to sit and watch it. But I definitely loved like the first kind of experience, and we'll do maybe a little recap at the end.
Yes, and also you can watch the whole race on YouTube. They have it uploaded in 6-hour segments because I guess on YouTube they weren't able to stream it in 24 hours. So it's 6-hour segments. Anyways, I highly recommend checking out. I think I watched less than 6 hours of it. We watched a good chunk in the beginning, and then another race came up. So I started watching that. Yeah, lots and lots of endurance races this weekend, so
Yeah.
it was kind of tough. But then we also tuned in for the last 20 minutes of the race, and
It was a lot of excitement.
it was, yes.
So basically, I mean, we talked about GTP, GTP was won by the Williams esports passenger or player seat team. Now, moving on to the second category,
Yep.
the LMP2, so the Le Mans Prototype 2. We had in first place, we had WSR Esports
Butt kickers!
What a name. But there was quite the excitement also for third place.
Real quick, I do want to say they did, I think this was the first time they were participating in the Daytona.
The butt kickers?
Yes, and the butt kickers. And also they won by a whole lap up.
Yes.
So they were really dominant throughout the whole race. They actually never lost the first place unless it was during a pit stop lap. And then they regained first place.
Yeah, and then a lap, just so you have an idea, if you don't already know, it's approximately 1 minute and 30 seconds.
Yeah, about
and
90
some,
seconds,
some
yeah.
change. So yeah, that's really cool. But going back to the third place, so there was a lot of excitement for the third place. We had two teams competing for the third place. They were really close together. However, then some vehicles from the GTP category were lapping them, which kind of interfered with that race. But at the end, Jürgen Frank with the Sim RC team got third place, not because they came in third, but because of a penalty that the other team incurred. So still congratulations to Jürgen Frank. Or Jürgen Frank. But yeah, so that definitely made the last couple of rounds that we saw, or last couple of laps that we saw, really, really exciting.
Yeah, I think overall in all three categories, it did stay quite competitive throughout the whole race, because sometimes it can be that people just like take off and they have such a huge lead.
Yeah.
At the end, I think that what happened last year with Ferrari during the real Le Mans. They were up quite a bit, but it's nice that after 24 hours there's still some competitiveness and people are fighting for position and stuff like that. So and there were, before we move on to the next category, there were quite a lot of people that DNF'd in all categories. Especially towards the beginning of the race. So it's really unfortunate that happened, but it's still nice that it stayed competitive throughout, the
Definitely.
24 hours.
Definitely.
And, yeah. So now moving on to the last category, which is GTD.
Yes.
I gave you some side eye. I don't know if you saw. And Team Redline came first, which Max Verstappen was part of, and their sister team came in third. The whole race over, they were actually being really like team. They were
a team. That's correct. But
they were a team, okay?
But
some people are beach and some people are team.
they were team.
They were team.
But essentially what Milan was trying to say is that they did work together as a team as well.
Yeah, that's what I said. I said they were team, okay? Okay. Yeah, so they were team, okay, guys?
But I thought was very cool, which I think you're trying to get at, which I'll let you explain, of course, as well. Okay.
That they were team.
Two things, besides that they were team. One, I do want to point out that Max Verstappen was driving a Mercedes.
Yes, in a Red Bull livery or livery.
Yes, but he was driving a Mercedes.
It is kind of fun.
It is. I mean, it was a very good-looking Mercedes too. It's a nice
those
car.
AMGs look really nice.
But they were like really close back to each other, which you were explaining to me earlier.
Yeah, so they were drafting for the majority of the race. So essentially, they're staying like nose to butt of the car. Trunk, yes. Nose to trunk of the car. And it just helps, especially the car behind, to save fuel. And that ended up helping them quite a lot, because I think Max was up almost 37 seconds at the end of the race to the second place. The only reason why their sister team didn't come in actually first is because they had an incident throughout the race that put them into third place. And so Max's team ended up taking first. Then there was a second team in between, and then the other one came third.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, once again, it still stayed interesting. It stayed competitive throughout, and it was a really cool watching experience. I, in general, really like 24-hour races because you can look into it, then you can go take a nap and then come back and they're still racing. And you can take like a 6-hour nap, right? And then they're still racing. So that's really cool.
But I also want to give a shout out to the commentators of it.
Definitely.
Because, I mean, first of all, I was surprised. I don't know why, but I was a little surprised that there were commentators, but also for the whole time. And they kept it really interesting. They were saying some interesting facts about the teams. And I mean, I'm very new to iRacing, so I didn't know about the individual teams or drivers, besides Max. So I thought they did a really good job. Off to them. So yeah, I just give a shout out to them. I think they did really nice.
Correct. And then if anyone actually watched it, I will say that the car is orange and blue. It's not brown and blue.
Oh.
There was a whole argument this whole race over whether or not one of the cars, I'm going to put it here, is orange and blue, or if it's brown and blue. It's orange. It's 100% orange.
But you can let us know in the comments below, what do you think the color of the vehicle is?
Okay. All right. So moving on from iRacing Daytona 24 hours to
AMA Supercross.
Yes.
We watched. Now this was the third round, which happened in San Diego. I don't know if you watched last weekend's, but it was quite the muddy, wet, rainy race. And then this week, I was going into it. I wasn't sure what the
I felt like it was an in-between, like what the weather conditions are going to be, because we live in LA and it was raining on Saturday, but it did take place in San Diego, so there's a little bit of a different distance between us. But it was raining over there too, and the track conditions were in between, I would say, between the first Anaheim race and the San Francisco race. So it wasn't completely dry. It was wet, but it wasn't like they were getting stuck. It seemed almost like it was more slippery.
Yes, it wasn't quite, they didn't get it. Yeah, it wasn't quite as heavy of a ground. It was more slippery. There were a couple more puddles. I also read that the teams managing the track, they were able to kind of get ahead of it a little bit because it wasn't raining quite as much as it was in San Francisco the week before. It did start drizzling throughout it, and also I think specifically during right before the M40, the 450cc main event. But yeah, there was another really fun event to watch.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. Like us, we have never watched any Supercross up until this year. And I'm a huge fan. It's so much fun because throughout the races that are happening, right? So we always watch both heats, it's not lucky loser. What are they called?
The consolation races.
The consolation races, and then the two actual races, and it stays competitive and interesting the whole way through. You know, there's you never know for sure whether or not this person is gonna win the race until they make it through the finish line.
You can't call it too early. Like, somebody might be leading. It might be leading for the first, 10 laps, but anything can change at any moment.
And that's what makes it so interesting.
So fun. I mean, it just also looks so amazing.
Yeah,
I mean, like
the
air
really cool.
and then the whoops and
the air and the whoops.
I mean, it really does. It looks fun.
Yes.
But it also just looks like such a spectacle.
Yes.
And just especially when they come in through like the final ramp, they get this immense air. Typically, I mean, not as much during San Francisco, just because they didn't have the speed to just like take off it. This one, they got a lot more air than the last race.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which air is just so exciting to see. But it was another very intense round of races. All the heats were super exciting. I mean, we even had a red flag.
Yes, this is the first time we've seen a red flag happening, and it ended in a race restart, which we also learned that if not 3 laps have to be completed by the race leader for them to just I don't know actually how the restart would work then, but they would then, I guess, start in their position, and maybe they would then, I don't know exactly how it works.
I know, but this time at least they did restart the race completely,
Exactly,
just because it happened. Like one of the racers got injured, so they had to stop the race.
I also thought it was really interesting because so we had Nate Thrasher winning the 250cc.
Yes.
Really excellent job by him because he passed the leading guy, Marchbanks. They were fighting, I would say, like the majority of that final race.
I mean,
they were like fighting, they were switching positions quite a bit, and then Nate was actually caught behind another racer.
Yeah.
And that made Marchbanks pass him again. And then I don't know what happened, but then Nate was able to, I think he had just a really good rhythm, especially through the whoops.
Yeah, I mean, not even just that. I mean, even if you go even further I mean, so much happened during the race.
Yes.
So like it started off with RJ leading, and then Levi Kitchen took over, but then both of them,
yes, I forgot about that. Oh my goodness.
Both of them got caught up. So they all went
for Levi, yes.
right?
Oh, I forgot about that. That's so heartbreaking, yes.
Yeah, because he was leading for quite a moment, and it was so exciting because he's been placing on the podium every single race. I mean, the two other races of the season so far. So he's had a great start into the season. It looked like he was potentially going to win.
And then he fell, yeah?
I think so, yeah. I mean, it was just so unlucky. I think in his case, which is a new term that I learned, he cross-rodded.
Yes.
Remember? So it basically means, in case you guys don't know what it means, it's that he, like, his front wheel and his back wheel ended up in two different tracks.
Yes.
So that kind of gets him out of alignment and it makes him fall. And then, of course, once the bike is down, you have to get it up. But if you're on the wrong position of an obstacle, it's heavy, and then
it's even harder to like position yourself to start back up, and then you have to be careful about the other racers. Yeah, I forgot about Levi because all the other things happened.
I mean, that's why we're telling you guys to definitely watch it. I mean, if you're in the US, it's super accessible watching it on Peacock. It's 3 hours long, the entire thing. So you get 2 heat races per category. So you have 4 heat races in total, 2 consolation races, 1 per category, and then 2 main events.
Yes.
And so it's action packed, and each of the races is just action packed. So much happens. So much happens.
And if you feel like 3 hours sounds long, it does not feel long. I feel like the time passes so fast because constantly action is happening.
Yes.
So I highly recommend, if you can't watch it on Peacock, you can't watch the whole race, at least go and check out on NBC Motorsports. They have the highlights. We'll link them down below. Check them out because it is such a cool sport.
Yes.
And before we move on to the 450cc, next week, actually, this upcoming Saturday, will actually be live at the Anaheim race.
Yes.
And we'll get to watch it live, and it's so exciting. I can't wait.
And
we'll do a whole video about that too, but it's super exciting. And one last thing before we move on to the 450cc is I wanted to say we've also both been kind of like having our eyes on Joe Shimoda.
Oh, yeah.
And he's a great racer, but his starts are just off.
Or he gets tangled up somewhere.
He fell a couple times.
Yeah.
But like both of his starts for his heat as well as for the race were not good. And he made it through the heat. He made it into the top 10, right? No problem. But both times I think he could have placed much better if he would have had better starts. He just gets caught up in like the traffic and then he loses so many positions. And then he did make up quite a lot of positions.
I mean, he ended up in 4th, which is amazing.
Yes.
I mean, that's also one of the things. It's really incredible how some of these guys make it through the others and make it to the top.
I think it's also interesting that sometimes I think in the 450cc, some of those guys were down 3 laps. Oh. So it's like, that's like, what did we say, 90 seconds or so? No, that was Daytona.
No, that was,
I don't remember.
I think, here, it's about a minute. About a minute is the lap. And actually, Joe Shimoda had the fastest lap in yesterday's race in his 250cc category.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's awesome.
I think it was the second to last lap that he did. But yeah, he did get fastest lap, which is also very exciting. So so we're definitely a fan of Joe Shimoda, or we're rooting for him. I mean, we're rooting for everybody.
Yeah, everyone. I was so super excited for Nate too. Like he's been, I think he was injured, right?
I think so,
He was injured and he had a long recovery time, but his team stuck with him. And then now he got his first race win this season, and it's so exciting.
Yeah.
I'm very happy for him. I'm very excited, especially now that we've watched 3 races. We're kind of familiar with the people.
A little bit,
and
yeah.
with the names, we're getting familiar with them, and it will be exciting to see those guys racing live on Saturday. I'm very excited.
Definitely very much looking forward to it. Now moving on to the 450cc category, which was also just riddled with excitement. Going into it, we were, I guess, one of our favorite, because we have Joe Shimoda is in 250cc, one of our, I mean, it's hard to say favorite because we're literally rooting for everybody.
Everyone who does well, we're rooting for everyone.
But I guess we have a little bit more of a connection with Ken Roxon just because he is German.
Yes.
So we automatically have a connection.
Yes.
And which was also just so
once again a heartbreaking. Yes.
I mean, he started off the 450 main event. We're just jumping right into the main event here, and he was leading it, and he was doing so well, and then
he had a tumble and he fell, and then he ended up being...
his front wheel got caught when he was doing one of the jumps, if I'm not mistaken.
I think he mistimed one of his jumps, and then he didn't end up on the slope down. He kind of ended up on the slope up. And then he ended up falling off the bike, and it took him a while to get back on it. And then I think he had to stop, quote unquote, in the pits.
Yeah.
And they did an adjustment, I think, to his steering.
He had to get out. So he was 18th at one point. So he had to go to like the service area to readjust the handlebars. I mean, it was just,
it's heartbreaking. And he was one of the people who was down 3 laps at the end. I think he came 15th. Or something like that.
I don't remember exactly, but I mean, it was just so heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But then, congratulations to Aaron Plessinger.
Yes.
He's such a character too. I mean, that's why you cannot root for these people, because they all seem just like to love the sport so much.
You cannot root just for one person.
Yes.
You can't root for anyone. No, you can't just root for one person, because like I'm also so excited for Aaron Plessinger. It was his first win in the 450cc.
Yes, he did so close last year in Detroit, apparently. So it's like...
And then last year unfortunately he wiped out, and then
right before he won.
Right before he won.
Yeah.
And then this year he brought it home, so exciting for him, and also because he's like with his cowboy hat, and he just seems like a really, really good dude.
Yeah.
And also really cool is he was wearing the same racing kit that he was wearing last year when he wiped out and didn't win. So honestly, huge congratulations to Aaron. What a fantastic job. I have goosebumps just thinking about him winning, because it's like, it's a big deal, you know?
It is. It was such, I mean, also lots happened, of course, during it. He didn't start in the front, but he ended up making it to the front.
Very consistent race,
And then Chase Sexton, for example, who won last week's race, he got into a tumble pretty close to the beginning. He got into a little tangle with Malcolm Stewart, which is just such a bummer.
Right at the beginning of the race, first corner, and then they already
first set of
bumped heads. Very, very unfortunate.
Yeah, it was just such a bummer. I mean, he did fight his way back a little bit. He ended up being 8th. So still in the points, which is going to be great for his for the overall championship. But I mean, it's just just so tough.
I mean, he definitely did like he hunted down those guys. He passed a lot of people, because I kept my eye out on him, and he was like, you could see him making up time, and then at some point he's passing like 2 or 3 people at the same time. So he's an excellent racer, obviously. That's why he won last year. But very unfortunate, way to, I guess, start the race. And then, I mean, he did the best he could. And also, not that, I want people to fall and stuff like that, but because he didn't have a perfect or that much of a good race this week, the standings for the 450cc is very, very tight. So Aaron Plessinger right now, number 1 in the championship standing by 1 point.
Yeah, I mean, it's so close.
It's super close.
I think that's really exciting to see as well. Also, Jet Lawrence did really well. He ended up coming in 4th. He also had some entanglements, and there was a little bit of a kerfuffle at the end. I'm not sure if you noticed it, but then after the race, he got into a little bit of an argument with Jason Anderson, where Jason Anderson also grabbed his chin thing. But then apparently I read online afterwards now that Jet apologized.
Oh, okay, good on him.
He's like, like it was in the heat of the moment,
good
because
on
he
him.
confronted Jason, because him and Jason were back to back. So Jason ended up 5th and Jet ended up 4th. So they were back to back. And apparently Jason had a couple times like he blocked him like braking wise or like with jumps and like interfered. Of course, you want to defend your position.
Yeah.
But then, Jet got a little bit heated and he confronted him.
Yeah,
Jason grabbed the
now that
thing.
you're saying this, I remember that they were fighting because they did the double screen, which I love in AMAs.
Oh, yes.
Like, not to like hype up NBC, but they're doing excellent job in their broadcast of AMA Supercross, because they will sometimes put the leaders up top and then the interesting chase or battle for position right down there. And yeah, Jason was defending his position hard.
Yeah.
And then Lawrence took or Jet Lawrence, because there's his brother's also
Hunter,
there.
yeah.
Was defending his position for quite a while. Once he was able to pass him, he put 5 seconds in between. But Jason definitely fought for a long time. For that 4th place position.
But yeah, so Jet apologized.
Good on him,
online,
honestly.
and then he also said if Jason should incur any AMA fines, he would happily pay for it because he kind of instigated the
okay, good on him.
So yeah,
I get that in the heat of the moment you're like, "Bah." But then it's good on him that he has that reflection to just apologize and realize, listen,
let's just hope it's not going to be a reoccurring thing, but hopefully he learned from it and moving on. But I mean, that's also excitement that happened after the race.
I honestly didn't see it. I remember you telling me, it was like, oh my god, what's going on? I was in La La Land.
I mean, because we were also super excited for Aaron, like he had won, and he's such a like showboaty guy, which is really fun to watch, of course.
I can't wait to see him,
so we're both really looking forward to this weekend. Unfortunately, Prado is not going to be there this weekend.
I didn't realize that.
Going back to Europe since he just came for a couple of the races, so he'll definitely be missed. But I mean, it's going to be super interesting regardless.
Yes. The last thing I want to say, this race, I don't recall them doing it last 2 races. They did those drone shots while racing, and I think they're really cool. I know an extended amount of time that can make you a little bit nauseous, but it is really cool because you have the drone actively flying behind
and, like,
the racers
them.
and following. And usually they focus in on one racer, and then it's just falling, and it's really, really cool.
Because it's very dynamic.
It's
and
very
it just
dynamic.
adds to the whole excitement of it.
One of the coolness of what AMA Supercross is.
Definitely.
So,
and then this week, they also had a theme of like throwbacks. So some of the racers had like a throwback outfit or a throwback bike design. There's a couple with like purple rims, which I love.
Yes. I think Shimoda had purple rims, and then we're not gonna remember because also one of the things is that they were most of the time covered in so much mud, so you can't really tell. It wasn't quite as bad as last weekend, obviously, but sometimes you just you can't remember.
But yeah, it's definitely worth checking out. So the upcoming weekend is going to be the next race in Anaheim. There's still tickets available if you want to go as well. But we're definitely super excited to go see it this upcoming weekend. And I think that's all we watched really this week.
That's not all. I've watched some of the 24-hour series powered by Hank Cook, 6-hour Abu Dhabi endurance race. I wasn't able to watch all of it because it started at like 9-something p.m. here Los Angeles time, and it went on until the early mornings, like 3 a.m. or something like that. Exactly. So I watched, I think, like the first 2.5 hours of it, and it was very interesting. I really actually like I think it's called the Yas Marina track. I think it's actually really cool. I've raced it on F1 before, and I think it's a really cool track. Very interesting, actually. During the like 2.5 hours that I watched, it was mostly the Ferrari and the Lambo battling for first place position, but a Porsche 911 GT3R ended up winning. So yay, Porsche! Unfortunately, the Lambo seemed to have DNF'd, which is very unfortunate, and the Ferrari ended up coming second. As of right now, unfortunately, there's no replay available for us to watch, which is very strange because I had the live stream in my viewing history, and it's not available right now to watch. So you guys can watch the qualifying and the results are available, but unfortunately not a live replay yet. If it's coming up, we'll put it down in the description box below so you guys can rewatch it. But as of right now, unfortunately, nothing available.
Yes.
Yeah. And that is it for this weekend. Lots and lots of racing. There was also Andros happening this weekend.
IMSA had also a race this weekend.
Yes.
So, I mean, there's so much to watch. Unfortunately, we can't watch everything, but we always will share with you guys what we watched. We tried to switch it up.
Besides AMA Supercross, that's on the calendar every year.
As I was saying it, I was like, maybe... we will always try to watch also something different. Like,
we try to keep it diverse.
Yeah, we will watch our favorites, but we will also. I mean, that's the whole point of this channel.
Yes,
also, it's just to enjoy and try out different types of racing.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And you guys can share in the comments down below what you guys watch, who you guys are following. You know, get in touch with us. And yeah, as always, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys tomorrow for the big Dakar review.
Yeah.